Hello, this is Keith, welcoming you to the 1924th edition of the Enfield Talking newspaper, Dateline the 3rd of October 2013. The readers this week are Janet, Sally, John and Keith, with Colin on the controls. The items that we will be reading come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent, and are their copyright. Our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Prilly, Ferdinand Bouillon, Harry Breur, and performed by Jean-Jacques Perry, and is used with his kind permission. The big local story this week concerns the downgrading of Chase Farm Hospital. We will read articles on the decision to downgrade and the leading interested parties' views on the matter. First of all, the special news items this week. The Home Library Service is part of Enfield Libraries and provides a delivery service to people living in the borough who are unable to visit a branch library due to age, mobility, disability or their caring responsibilities. We visit each of our members every 4 weeks. The service is free and we will tailor it to your taste. For visually impaired people, we can provide books in large print or recorded books on CD or cassette. We can also bring music on CD or films on DVD for people with some vision. Members are free to reserve particular items. If you would like to join the Home Library Service or know someone who would, please call 01992 716 010 and we will arrange for the Community Access Librarian to visit you. That number again, 01992 716 010. The Enfield Macular Disease Support Group meets on the second Wednesday of every month from 10 a.m. to 12 noon at the Trinity Church Hall, Gentleman's Row, Enfield EN2 6AN. The meetings are open to anyone affected by central vision loss. Carers are welcome too. For further details, please contact Alan Newsom on 020 8886 5659. That's Alan Newsom on 020 886 5659. If you are experiencing any problems receiving your Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane de Jersey on 020 8805 6578. She is your listener's representative and she will be pleased to help you. That's Diane de Jersey on 020 8805 6578. Now Janet will read the first item of news about Chase Farm.
After 7 years, countless marches, thousands of signatures on petitions and hundreds of responses to consultations, health bosses have again pushed through the decision to downgrade Chase Farm Hospital by the end of the year. Members of the Barnet, Enfield and Haringey clinical commissioning groups voted in favour of the decision. It will see maternity and inpatient paediatric services moved from Chase Farm on November the 20th and the Accident and Emergency Department of the hospital in the Ridgeway, Enfield, shut on December the 9th. Instead, patients will have to head to North Middlesex University Hospital, Edmonton, or Barnet Hospital, High Barnet, for treatment. As part of the $115 million clinical strategy, North Mid has received $80 million to refurbish the majority of its 1970s tower block and to build a new women's and children's centre. Chase Farm was given $12 million for a new urgent care centre and assessment unit for children and older people, while Barnet has been allocated $23 million to expand and improve maternity and A&E services, as well as to provide 200 extra parking spaces. While not a single GP commissioner voted against the plans, one Barnet doctor abstained, Enfield Council has indicated that it is considering launching a judicial review against the downgrade. Ray James, the authority's Director of Health, Housing and Adult Social Care, said that promises of improvement to primary care in the borough, as agreed by the respective Health Secretaries Alan Johnson and Andrew Lansley in 2008 and 2011, had not been made, and therefore the decision was unlawful. Mr. James' comments were echoed by Kate Wilkinson of Save Chase Farm campaign. She told the meeting, "Why are we in 2013 still lacking these safer, closer, better services closer to people's homes as we've been promised so many times?" Against this backdrop, how could anyone conceivably consider it safe to remove frontline services from Chase Farm Hospital, particularly at the busiest time of year? However, Tim Peachey, Chief Executive of Barnet and Chase Farm Hospitals NHS Trust, welcomed the decision. He said this is the final piece in the jigsaw. That will mean a bigger, better equipped A&E department at Barnet with more consultants and nurses. There will be more consultant input to A&E from physicians, surgeons and gynaecologists, and nearly 100 hours a week consultant cover in the maternity unit's labour ward.
This is the view of the authority. Enfield Council has indicated it will launch a legal challenge against the removal of emergency and maternity units at Chase Farm after the hospital's downgrade was approved. Ray James, the authority's Director of Health, Housing and Adult Social Care, told Barnet, Enfield and Haringey's Health Commissioners that their approval of the clinical strategy, which will see the hospital's frontline services axed by the end of the year, would be unlawful because Enfield residents had been assured that the closures could not take place before significant improvements were made to primary care in the borough. Enfield residents, he said, had been promised 4 new primary care centres, only 2 of which are due to be delivered by the end of next year, as well as improvements to GP provision before losing services at the hospital in the Ridgeway, Enfield. The assurances were among 16 recommendations by an independent reconfiguration panel comprising clinicians, managers and independent members who reviewed the strategy in 2008 and 2011, ratified by the then Health Secretary Andrew Lansley. Mr James told the meeting, for years the people of Enfield have been given firm assurances that these improvements will be in place before closure. Were the CCG to decide to go ahead without fulfilling these promises, it would be a grave breach of legitimate expectations. We have been advised that a closure decision without compliance with the preconditions and discharge of the assurances would be unlawful. The authority estimates a judicial review would cost around £100,000, a sum the council would recover if it won. A final announcement will be made this week. Council leader Doug Taylor added, the IRP made recommendations about primary care which should be honoured. A downgrade without the improvements is simply a loss for the borough. Liz Wise, Enfield CCG's chief officer, told last week's meeting that health providers had met the requirements set out in the decision in 2008 by the then Health Secretary Alan Johnson. Responding to the threat of a legal challenge, she said, we are extremely disappointed that Enfield Council has chosen to take this route. Given that our health partners say that they are ready to make these changes and GPs in all 3 boroughs agree that they should happen to maintain services, we should just get on and do it. We are very concerned about the impact on patient safety of any delay and believe that these changes must be made sooner rather than later to ensure that patients have high quality, safe and sustainable services.
Following on still from what you've heard so far, Enfield Southgate MP David Burrows has said he will not support Enfield Council if it takes legal action against the planned Chase Farm Hospital downgrade. His comments come after Ray James, the authority's Director of Health, Housing and Adult Social Care, told a meeting of Barnet, Enfield and Haringey's Health Commissioners that their approval of the clinical strategy would be unlawful because Enfield residents had been assured that the closures could not take place before significant improvements to primary care were made in the borough. Mr Burrows said that the Clinical Commissioning Group's decision to go ahead last week was not about whether or not the downgrade at Chase Farm should happen, but was one of timing and the readiness of services. The reality is that well over £100 million has been invested in the last year in our local hospitals, with improved and expanded women's, children's and emergency services at both North Mid and Barnet. as well as investment in new urgent care facilities, paediatric and older persons assessment units, and an elective surgical centre at Chase Farm, he said. The senior clinicians have given the clear warning that a delay in the implementation of the strategy will undermine North Mid, which has expanded its facilities upon the assumption that the planned service changes will take place. Let us not forget that this is an Enfield hospital that is increasingly the first choice for my constituents' health care and needs to be supported. Much as we continue to regret previous decisions about A&E and maternity services, I believe that the biggest risk for Chase Farm's future is the blight of continued delay and uncertainty. The Council should not stand in the way of the planned changes with a judicial review challenge. It should put taxpayers' money towards improving public health rather than wasting it on legal fees. Mr Burrows' fellow Tory and MP for Enfield North, Nick Dubois, last week said he would support the Council if it pursued a legal challenge. He told the Advertiser, "This was the wrong decision and fundamentally this is the last of a history of broken promises in Enfield going back to 2008 decision when Enfield residents were promised primary care improvements that would be in place. Evidently they aren't. I hope that the very fine words spoken by the Council are backed up by action and they have my full support if they seek a judicial review."
Still on Chase Farm, and here's the view of the campaigners. Campaigners have criticised the decision to downgrade services at Chase Farm Hospital before the end of the year. Members of the Barnet, Enfield and Haringey Clinical Care Commissioning Groups, or CCG, voted in favour of closing the hospital's accident and emergency as soon as possible from November the 15th. At the same time, Barnet and North Middlesex hospitals will be provided with expanded facilities and their staffing levels will be increased. Kate Wilkinson of the Save Chase Farm campaign group said, "It's not surprising at all. This was just a tick-box exercise, but it's about what happens now. Emergency frontline services, including intensive care facilities, are being stripped from the local community. If the CCGs are confident it's safe to close the emergency facilities at the busiest time of the year, when intake figures at A&E have doubled over the past year, let's see the evidence to back it up. Staffing and capacity issues have also not been resolved. I hope the Council will fight the decision. Previous conditions required that primary care should be improved in Enfield before the closures were rolled out. As you've just heard, MP for Enfield North, Nick Dubois, said this has not happened and he's backing Enfield Borough Council's challenge. Speaking to the Enfield Independent, he said, "The decision made was the wrong one. The problem for Enfield is that there is a history of a lack of trust. Things have been promised before and not delivered. The CCGs have got a long way to go to persuade me and the people of Enfield that this is the right decision."
Now this is about Chase Farm and it's the North Middlesex Hospital's view. North Middlesex University Hospital has welcomed the decision to close key services at Chase Farm Hospital in November. The decision made by Barnet, Enfield and Haringey Clinical Commissioning Groups will see an increase of about around 25,000 patients attending its accident and emergency ward each year. This will result in the hospital in Edmonton becoming one of the largest A&E wards in the capital, with a total of 175,000 people coming through the doors every year. As well as the closure of the A&E ward, the maternity unit at Chase Farm in Enfield will also be closed, leading to an expected 1,800 more births per year at North Middlesex. North Middlesex University Hospital's NHS Trust Chief Executive Julie Lowe said, "It's great news for local people. At North Middlesex, we'll be able to provide fantastic new services, including a new women's and children unit, new birthing pools, a new neonatal unit, more surgical and medical wards, and 3 additional intensive care beds. We are already recruiting nearly 450 additional doctors and nurses to provide the new services, and together with existing staff, they will be able to provide more specialist care every day of the year for patients, with more consultant cover, including at weekends. It's excellent for local people, for our dedicated staff, and for the North Middlesex University Hospital. It's a once-in-a-lifetime change that will help establish our role as the local hospital for Enfield, the east of Haringey and beyond.
Conservationists, wildlife lovers and residents vented their fury over plans for a school expansion in an underused corner of the borough at a heated meeting. The gathering was to discuss proposals to build a school extension on a fenced-off piece of land beside dilapidated tennis courts in Groveland Park in the Bourne, Southgate, which is currently owned by Thames Water. Residents jeered and booed as parents voiced their fears over the lack of primary school places in the borough. Council bosses had arranged the meeting at the Methodist Church Hall in Queen Elizabeth Drive so that Gary Barnes, Enfield's Assistant Director of Regeneration, Leisure and Libraries, could attempt to allay fears that a building would blight the park's landscape. He showed the packed hall concept proposals for how the two-form entry school extension would look, but one resident, whose house backs onto the park, told the packed meeting that even though she was expecting her first child, we should be concerned about the people who cannot speak for themselves, the wildlife that has been able to thrive on that space. Her views on conservation were echoed by many residents. Speaking to the Advertiser after the meeting, Groveland's Residents Association Chairman Christopher Binns stressed that the residents did not want to sound selfish and understood that school places were needed in the borough. He added, "We are positive about schools being built, but we are also positive about wildlife." When asked if he felt the meeting between council chiefs, residents and parents had been effective, Mr. Binns said that he did not feel his fears over the environmental impact on wildlife at the site had been quelled. "I feel we are no further along," he said. "Conservation is hugely important in this area. We do need school places in Enfield, and we also need green spaces for children to enjoy in the borough." Mr. Binns added that many residents felt aggrieved the council did not appear to be considering building on the site of the former Minchendon School in High Street, Southgate. Adding to the anger of many residents was Mr. Barnes's admission that the council will be spending £43,000 on a park survey and a management plan. So far, £7,000 has been spent on concept proposals. The regeneration chief stressed that the school expansion was merely at the concept stage and that council bosses would be holding regular meetings with concerned residents and parents to keep them updated on the process.
You've just heard how the residents' meeting did boom others regarding the providing of school places. And here we've got the comments from three of those mothers. Ayla Ali, 40, a single mum of the Mall Southgate, is faced with having to give up work and homeschool her daughter, who turns 5 tomorrow, from January, because she did not get a place in any of her primary school preferences. "I have lived here for 8 years. I live 0.4 miles from Walker Primary School in the Green Southgate, but my daughter didn't even get a place there. The school is a 3-minute walk from my house, and I desperately wanted her to go there, because it would have meant my cousin could have helped with the school run. When this new school is planned for 2016, that would be too late for us, but I don't want anyone going through the same thing I am going through. I can't sleep, I can't relax. I have to give up work as a salon manager to homeschool my daughter from January because there are no places for her in the borough. I have worked since I was 15. I just don't know what to do." That's followed by Gonal Daniels, 40, who lives in Bourne Hill, Southgate, and has 2-year-old twins. 2 decades ago, my neighbours went to Walker School. Now people in Bourne Hill have to go to Highfield Primary School in Highfield Road, Winchmore Hill, or St Monica's in Cannon Road, Southgate, a faith school. South West Enfield Action Trust represents parents who are in the same position as we are. There's a big black hole of primary school practicing in the Fox Lane area. Last week we had a meeting with the council and with Gary Barnes, the Assistant Director of registration, leisure and libraries, and the council do at least seem to be looking at our concerns. And next week we have a meeting of our members where we will look at the next steps that we have to take. We will be writing a template letter where people can sign and send it to the councillors for this ward. And the last view is from Emma Fisher, 40, of Oakfield School, Southgate, who has a 3-year-old son and is expecting her second child in 7 weeks' time. I live at an address, again just 0.4 miles from Walker School. I just don't see how building a school expansion here in the Old Thames Water site is a problem. Standing right here near where the school would be, this is a school provision black spot, and the Thames Water land is free. It isn't used by anyone apart from the occasional dog walker. I am potentially going to be faced with getting 2 children under 5 into a car for a school run, having to take them both all the way down to the North Circular Road, as that is where the only school with places is. I walked to my local school when I was a child, and I can't understand why they can't do that here. Why can my children not be part of the local community?
Charity-minded businesses hosted coffee mornings to raise money for Macmillan Cancer Support. The nationwide event, part of Macmillan's World Biggest Coffee Morning, encouraged people to host a coffee morning with the donations going to the charity. The Heritage Coffee and Tea Company in the Broadway, Southgate, took part for the 2nd year running and raised £381, beating last year's total of £221. As well as selling cakes and coffee, there was a raffle with prizes, including large hampers, champagne and afternoon tea at the coffee shop. Colin Johnson, who owns and runs the tea room with his sister, says he has always been a supporter of Macmillan. There was definitely a bigger crowd this year, and there was more involvement from the community, he said. Local businesses also came down to show their support. Pure Hair and Beauty Salon in Windmill Hill, Enfield, also hosted an all-day event selling tea, coffee and cake to clients and members of the public. Taz Pentelli, who owns the salon, said he wanted to give something back to the Macmillan nurses, who helped his mother-in-law before she passed away in 2005. Mr. Pantelli was pleasantly surprised at the positive response he got from the public and the community. Some clients just donated money, even without taking any tea and cake, he said. Others just walked in from the street after recognising the balloons outside and just wanted to donate to Macmillan. We have had a really good response. A coffee morning was also held at the Heritage Coffee and Tea Company in Winchmore Hill Road. Southgate MP David Burrows turned up in time to perform the raffle draw and chat to visitors at the coffee shop. Local business owner Farid Said, who launched her product gourmet oat brownies at the shop, said, "The shop was packed today. It was great to see so many people come and support the cause. I believe the shop managed to raise more than £300. And Barclays in Enfield Town, known for having the world's first ATM machine, also encouraged its employees to take part in the coffee morning. The event included activities such as tombola, guess the number of sweets in a jar, and a raffle competition, as well as homemade cake sales. Speaking before the coffee morning, Carly Scala, a personal banker at the branch, said, "We're delighted to be going to town and supporting Macmillan's World Biggest Coffee Morning once again this year. Our event was a huge success last year when we raised about £580, and we're really looking forward to inviting our local community to join us once again for such a good cause. There really couldn't be an easier way to make a difference, especially with the green gifts which our customers will love. My mother was affected by cancer, but is now healthy after receiving treatment, and back at home, which makes our branch even more determined to raise at least £650 for Macmillan."
Edmonton MP Andy Love showed off fine golf skills. Well, there's a picture of Andy Love. It looks like he's playing crazy golf. Never mind. At the Labour Party conference, as he raised awareness for a new campaign to rid the streets of clutter. A mini golf course was set up to help publicise the Guide Dog Streets Ahead campaign to tackle the growing number of advertising boards, wheelie bins and cars parking on pavements, which are causing major problems for blind and partially sighted people. The charity is campaigning for a nationwide law to prevent pavement parking unless specifically permitted. Some 97% of visually impaired people reported that they had a problem on a daily or weekly basis, with 57% suffering an injury as a result. Mr. Love topped the leaderboard against his fellow MPs. He said, "This was a fun way to spread this serious message. Street clutter has the potential to deter blind and partially sighted people from leaving home alone, and I'm happy to support Guide Dog's call for safer pedestrian footpaths."
Enfield Scouts made the trip south to quiz MPs at the annual Labour Party conference. Explorer Scouts from across the borough attended the Scouts Speak Up event on Brighton Pier, giving them the chance to discuss local and national issues that affect young people with Labour MPs. The Scouts joined the MPs on the first of 4 days at the Labour Party conference. Jack Sparks, 17, a member of the Parker Bowles Explorers Scouts in Freezy Water, Enfield, said, "I really enjoyed talking to MPs who care about our hopes for the future and views on issues that are currently affecting us. I was eager to make good use of this opportunity to discuss ways in which my friends and I can improve our community and help make a difference." Pippa Byrom, 16, of Bush Hill Park, said, "It was great to meet the MPs and tell them about all the positive things we can do in scouting to change society for the better." Chief Scout Bear Grylls said, "Events like this are really important for Scouts who are looking to make change happen. I want members to feel empowered to fulfil their dreams and ambitions, value the contribution they make to our communities, and to feel proud of everything they do. For all those campaigning for young people to get their voice heard and be a positive force in society, I say well done. Keep at it and don't give up. Together, we're stronger."
Despite significant opposition, 2 more parks have been approved to hold entertainment events until late in the evening. Bush Hill Park and Enfield playing fields have been granted entertainment licences alongside 15 other Enfield parks, able to host live music, films and many other events on any day of the year until 11 p.m. The licences were granted on Wednesday, the 18th of September, by an Enfield Borough Council subcommittee, despite Bush Hill Park receiving 86 objection letters and just 1 in favour, with Enfield playing fields receiving 6 objections. The majority of complaints cited city noise disturbances, excess traffic and increase in antisocial behaviour as the fundamental reasons for rejecting the proposal for Bush Hill Park. Linda Farquharson of Harmon Road, Enfield, was among objectors. She wrote, "The park is presently peaceful and that events in the park could destroy the local family atmosphere and create a culture of noise."
We have now reached the end of side 1 of this tape. Please stop your machine now, take out the cassette, turn it over and start side 2.